Chapter 19. Leonardo Emerson rushed around the firehouse with her phone in hand, with one goal in mind. "Jimmy?" she called as soon as she caught sight of him in the bunk room. "Hey, Emerson." He greeted her with a warm smile, stopping immediately in his steps when he heard her calling his name. "Have you seen Chili?" she questioned, and by the tone of her voice she was obviously worried. His eyebrows furrowed, giving her his undivided attention right away. "Not yet," he answered, watching her sigh and glance back at her phone. What's wrong? He'd never seen her so stressed out, not even on a call. "She's not here, and she's not responding to any of my texts," she explained, watching him grab his phone and go to his contacts. "She's really late, and she's never late." Voicemail. "I'm sure she'll be here," he assured her, waiting on the line to leave a message as she sighed heavily. "Yo, Chili, it's Jimmy. Where are you?" He hung up, sending her a reassuring smile. "She'll be here." He glanced around quickly before leaning in to press a kiss on her forehead and walking away. Emerson sighed, unsure what to do next. She walked away from the bunk room and rushed to Dawson, who stood in the middle of the common room. "Dawson, I have a problem. Chili hasn't shown up for shift." Dawson sighed heavily. "Well, she definitely chose the wrong day to cross Bowden." "I know," Emerson answered, stressed out. Bowden had been having a lot of trouble with the deputy chief as well as with a neighbor stirring trouble. It was a whole mess, and everyone was worried for him, even though he didn't want them to be. "Okay, get the off-going pick to put you out of service so that Chili isn't AWOL, and you better do it before." Gabby was cut off by the bell going off. A call comes in. She walked off immediately without saying another word, leaving Emerson desperate and stressing out some more. "Truck 81, Ambo 61, vehicle accident. Sacramento and Ohio." Right as she walked out of the common room, Chili came in and dropped her bag on the ground. "Chili, what the hell?" Emerson glared at her, angry that her partner didn't even bother calling it in and instead left her to fend for herself. "I overslept. It happens. Relax. It all worked out," Chili retorted, following her to the apparatus floor and into the ambulance. Emerson scoffed under her breath, disliking her unbothered tone, but she decided not to say anything. "How's he doing?" Chili asked Emerson as she assessed the guy's injuries, while Casey worked on trying to get him out of the crashed car. "He's alert. Laceration to the face. Looks like he's pinned." She called to Chili, putting the C-collar on the man. "How is it you managed to crash into a parked vehicle?" Emerson asked, trying to make light conversation to distract the man. "I looked down at the radio to change the station. It was an emergency. They were playing Justin Bieber." He joked, looking at her sideways. "Say no more." She smiled, making sure the collar was on right and that there weren't any other injuries. "I knew you'd understand." The man answered, turning to take a better look at her. "Your eyes are incredible, by the way," he flirted, causing Casey to raise his head and look at Emerson with a smirk on his lips. "I think you must have hit your head," she quickly answered, backing up when the flames grew bigger on the car. Casey and Herman successfully evacuated the man before the car burst into flames. The paramedics took care of the flirty man, bringing him to the hospital after Herman rescued a tortoise from the parked RV, which they ended up bringing to the firehouse since they didn't know what to do with it. "I got food for the big boy," Emerson announced, holding up a bag as she walked into the common room. Jimmy immediately rushed towards her. "Emerson, the tortoise is acting super sluggish." "Well, anybody give him water? He could be dehydrated," she suggested, staring at the guilty-looking firefighters around her, who only now seemed to realize that they hadn't done the most basic thing. "Okay, I'll get it some water," she chuckled, patting his shoulder as she walked around him. "Dehydrated. Okay, that's not so bad. We'll get him some lemonade," Herman stated, making them laugh, especially Cruz's guest, Freddie. Emerson gave the tortoise some water, hoping that was the problem. Later on, as everyone hung out around the common room, Jimmy called out, "Hey guys, the tortoise is getting away." They all barely reacted to his words, only turning their heads to glance at it. "Mouch, you gonna stop it?" Gabby said, watching it slowly heading towards the door, and Mouch was the closest to it. "What's the rush?" Emerson answered, laughing at her own words while they watched the animal barely getting closer to the door. "Okay, guys, this is getting old. Let's just clear a spot out on the apparatus floor, and we'll rig up an enclosure for him. Come on, before he gets away. Herman decided, and all of them followed him out to choose an appropriate spot. Emerson left them to it, deciding to help Chili out with the inventory. She walked closer to her partner. Hey, how'd it go with Bowden? She asked, and only then did she notice Chili was wearing headphones, playing loud music into her ears. Emerson frowned as Chili completely ignored her, or didn't hear her. Jimmy was just walking up to her, noticing the weird interaction between the two when a voice caught them off guard. There she is. It's the miracle worker with the big, blue eyes, the man said, catching everyone's attention as he walked towards her with flowers. Her eyes widened as she recognized him immediately. Oh my God, I love Gerber daisies. I had a feeling, he said, handing them to her while completely ignoring Jimmy, who was standing next to her. Wow, really? How did you? She questioned, slightly freaked out before she realized. I said something to my partner about it when we wheeled you past the hospital flower shop. You got me. Austin, right? He nodded. How's your leg? Emerson asked, unsure what to make of the situation. Oh, they did an MRI. Just a muscle tear. It's no biggie, he shortly explained. I just wanted to thank you for taking such good care of me. Did you bring flowers for my lieutenant? 'Cause he's the one that pulled you out of a burning car. Jimmy jumped in and Emerson turned to him, biting her lip to hold herself back from laughing. Luckily for all of them, it's that they were cut off by the alarm blaring. Ambulance 61, person collapsed, Sacrament and Walnut. I got to go, she told him as she walked off and into the ambulance. Thank you for the flowers. I never got your name, Austin stated, following after her and stopping by the opened window as she buckled herself in. Oh, Emerson, she answered, still a little freaked out by him. Emerson, I would be over the moon if you let me buy you lunch sometime. Austin spoke in a flirty tone, trying to subtly convince her. She hesitated, unsure how to turn him down gently. I gotta go. She awkwardly smiled before driving off. He left shortly after her, Jimmy watching him the whole time. I came in to do cleanup, found him in the corn. The woman on scene explained to them, pointing them over to the man she found. The paramedic sat on either side of him, checking him out. He's dead, isn't he? Blood pressure's low, Emerson stated, checking his vitals, which were a sign that he was indeed still alive. Body temp is really low too. He must have been lying here for hours. Maybe he has some medical ID in his wallet, Emerson said, checking his pocket for anything that could help. No wallet. Well, he's probably homeless. They come in here and steal our food, the woman informed them. Pupils are equal. I don't see any sign of head trauma. All right, I'm going to bolus him, get his pressure up. Hopefully he comes to. Emerson called, working quickly and effectively with her partner. Whoa, blood sugar's only 20. Chili said, glancing up at Emerson. All right, amp a D50. That'll help him come around, she suggested, holding the bolus bag between her shoulder and the side of her head. It's up to 120. Bolus isn't working either. Pressure's still low. Let's get him on the backboard and trauma him to med, Emerson suggested, trying to figure out what happened there in her head. Hey, I saw Bowden pull you aside this morning. Everything go okay? Emerson tried asking again as they walked back inside the firehouse after their call with her flowers in hand. It was nothing. Chili shrugged it off. What's up with Hot Victim and the daisies? He asked you out? Emerson chuckled. Yeah, but I'm not really interested. Right? 'Cause of Jimmy. Chili muttered. You know he's not really interested in settling down, right? And you don't seem like the type who just wants to play around. Her partner warned her, confusing her, because how could she possibly know? From what Jimmy told her, he wasn't necessarily looking to play around either. Chili didn't give her a chance to answer before walking off. Emerson was left alone in the hallway, eyebrows raised as she tried to understand what the hell just happened. Chili had been on edge ever since she started seeing Jimmy, so Emerson wondered if that's what it was about or if something else was wrong with her partner. Her question went unanswered for the rest of shift, with Chili avoiding her and whatnot. Emerson was worried but also confused about it. She thought she had Chili figured out. Turns out she too must have secrets buried deep. The next day, Emerson was tying her hair up in front of the mirror when Jimmy walked up to her, wrapping his arms around her waist. She smiled, leaning into him as she finished tying her ponytail. "So, where are we going?" he asked her, as she told him to get ready without actually giving out their destination. She bit her lip, still unsure if it was a good idea on her part, but she felt obligated to do it. "To Chili's. I want to make sure she's okay, and I think she's less likely to bite my head off if you're with me." Jimmy chuckled. "Oh, so I'm what? Your shield?" She pondered the thought for a few seconds. "Or my guardian angel? Your choice." She smiled, turning around in his grip so she could face him. With her hands pressed against his chest, she tilted her head to the side. "So, you in?" A few minutes later, they found themselves in front of Chili's door, Jimmy stepping forward to knock on it a few times, waiting for her to open it. "Hi, can we come in?" Emerson asked as soon as Chili opened the door, her heart beating loudly in her chest, scared that she was overstepping an unspoken boundary. Chili sighed, looking around her apartment shortly before answering. "Hey, sure." She let them in, noticing them taking a look around her very messy apartment. "It's my maid's day off, but she stopped by for a drink," she explained, picking up some stuff off the ground. "Well, hopefully you didn't have to pay her for that," Emerson joked, hearing a low laugh coming from Chili, which reassured her. "Listen, Chili, last shift, it seemed like maybe something was going on with you. Everything okay?" "Everything is fine," Chili hummed, keeping her distance from the couple. "Chili, we care about you. We just want you to know that we're here if you need anything," Jimmy added, sensing that something was off too. "Yeah, and you called me out on my bullshit when I claimed that I was fine and I wasn't. You were there for me, so I want to be there for you. That's really sweet, but I'm fine, I swear." Chili insisted, hoping they would just let it go. Emerson nodded, taking a deep breath. "All right, well, we're not going to bother you any longer. Just don't hesitate if you need anything, yeah?" Emerson made sure, waiting for Chili to nod, before sending her a smile and walking away. She knew there was still something wrong with her partner, but all she could do was extend her hand out to her. It was on Chili to grab it or not. In the car, Jimmy grabbed her hand in his to catch her attention. "Hey, that was very nice of you to do," he assured her, flashing her a smile as she drove back to his place. "I wish I could do more, but with everything she said to me, I feel like my hands are a little tied." She pulled her lips in a thin line, seeing him frown from the corner of her eyes. She had yet to tell him anything about what her partner said. Emerson sighed. "She just got on my case about seeing you, said nothing could come out of it and that we didn't want the same things." Jimmy lightly rolled his eyes. "She doesn't know what she's talking about. What's going on between us is none of her business." He trailed off, not really answering her worries, but she didn't add anything else. They were just casual, nothing official or anything, so she didn't want to bother him by asking, although her sensed there was something else. "And we do want the same things, Emerson. It's not because we're being casual right now that nothing will come out of it down the road." She sent him a smile, squeezing his hand as she focused back on the road. She pushed her worries regarding Chili aside, deciding to enjoy her day off instead. Mouch stood at the end of the table in the common room, explaining to everyone that they found a wallet in the RV and a possible ID for the owner. "We're trying. We found a number in Denver. We left some messages. Apparently, he's not checking his voicemail when he's on the road." Emerson frowned, grabbing the wallet from him. "There's no other contact information in there?" She curiously looked through it, her eyes freezing on the driving license's picture. "Hey, Chili, is this our John Doe?" she asked, passing her the wallet. "Oh, yeah. We picked him up the other day. He was unconscious, diabetic shock. He didn't have an ID on him." Emerson further explained, recalling the events. "You know, that garden was only like quarter-mile away from the RV. He probably felt his blood sugar getting low, and he pulled over." Chili assumed, handing back the wallet to Emerson. "Got disoriented and wandered off. That's how he ended up napping in the corn." She finished the story, observing the picture again. "We should call Med," Chili stated, making Emerson nod and stand up to do so. She walked away towards the kitchen island where Matt stood serving himself a plate of breakfast, grabbing her phone to make the call. "Hey, my favorite paramedic," Will's voice exclaimed from the other side of the phone. Emerson chuckled. "My favorite doctor." I hope I'm not bothering you. I just had a question for you. I'm all ears. We brought in a patient the other day, found unconscious in a cornfield, she said, hearing Will hum in response. Well, we just found his wallet, and turns out his name's Jeremy Green. We also found his tortoise, and I was wondering if you could tell us anything that could help us locate him. Emerson spent a few more minutes on the phone with Will as he gave her as much information as he could. Okay, well, thanks for the update, Will. I'll see you soon. She bid him goodbye, hanging up soon after. The paramedic faced her colleagues, speaking up. Jeremy Green is still in the hospital. They found a brain bleed he probably sustained in the fall, and they're keeping him sedated and intubated until it clears. Do they think he'll make it? Matt asked, and Emerson shrugged in response. Will said it was hard to say at this point in time. Should we try animal control again? Gabby questioned. We are not putting Leonardo in a shelter, Mouch sternly said, pointing his fork at Gabby. They all chuckled as Gabby raised her hands up in defense. Later on, after a call, the wife and son of Jeremy Green visited the firehouse. They let them know that the doctors seemed hopeful for the man, which warmed their hearts. They then proceeded to give back Leonardo to them, only to find out he was called Donatello.